Yeah, hi there. These comments, I'm going to use your initials for privacy purposes. MM, and I am Michael, the founder, owner, and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-Step System to Pass the TOEFL IBT. And you are also one of my students in the English language program here at California State University, San Bernardino, and you completed online my integrated writing practice test. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is, this is where you posted it at my website, and I'm actually going to work with it a little bit. So here, you have the introduction. The article states that arranging meetings, I would make this plural, reading all training materials, writing all stages, and then, why does the writer say all this information? That's my question. I want to say important for business success, right? Then you can say it provides 3 reasons of support. Now this idea, if we look at the actual reading passage here, it's not just writing all stages, but it's bypassing the stages or skipping the stages of the writing process, since it is too time consuming. So you didn't completely accurately explain that information here. So you can say, you might say, of the writing process. So we have the article states that arranging meetings, reading all training materials, not following all stages of the writing process. You can put, and not following all stages of the writing process are important for business success and provides 3 reasons of support. However, the lecture explains that we don't need long meetings, and use another way refutes each of the author's reasons. So if you bring up we don't need long meetings, then you have to bring up read all training materials and then not following all stages of the writing process. So you probably don't want to do that. You just say the lecture I would just say it something like this. So you say, however, the lecture refutes each of the author's reasons. You have here, first of all, the reading claims that all employees want to attend all company meetings. That's not true. I think it's saying, if you look at what you see here, so it's saying all employees need to attend all company meetings. That's not the same as wanting to attend all company meetings. So when you're summarizing, you have to make sure that you do not change the meaning of what you are reading. That's a big problem. So I'm going to just say here, must. So the reading claims that all employees must attend all company meetings. Now, because the lecture is different, I think it's important to use a word like this. So in contrast, the lecture refutes this point by saying, so the other thing here, though, I don't think you're done with the reading passage. So why does the reading claim that employees must attend all company meetings? Now, you don't have to explain everything in the reading passage when you're summarizing, but you should include at least a major point with a major support point. So the main point is, I agree with you, is to attend all meetings. But the support point is why. So it says here, Meetings are effective for discussing controversial issues and making sure everyone is up to date with current technology. See, I think you should have at least paraphrased that information. You don't have to say it exactly like this, but you should paraphrase this information because it is a major support point. Okay, so I think that you needed to further explain this idea here. So you see, the lecture refutes this point by saying that limited for meetings would be shorter. Now, if you look at what the lecture is saying, you're not accurately paraphrasing this information either. So what this is telling me is, I think what I'm seeing here is you're having some language use problems, which means you kind of know what is being said in the lecture, but you're not sure how to paraphrase it or what type of vocabulary or grammar you should use to paraphrase it. So if you look at the beginning here, it says, limit the number of meetings you schedule. So then if we go back to what you said, so what you have to do here, this is more of a grammar problem, so you're using the word that, right? Which means you have to have a subject here. You already have your verb right here. So if you take the word limited and you change it to ing, now you have a gerund. So the lecture refutes this point by saying that limiting and then you might say is important. If a meeting is scheduled should be, you want to say here, shorter. You can probably say it like this, and this is what you've already said here, right? So you're having some grammar limitations, believe it or not. So you're sometimes having trouble combining sentences. In this case, in contrast, the lecture refutes this point by saying that limiting the number of meetings is important, and if a meeting, passive voice here, is scheduled, it should be shorter than 1 hour. Second of all, the article posits that employees should, you can probably just use here, should read all materials because they will help them in their jobs. However, the lecture says employees don't need, I'm going to say here to read because you're talking more about a potential action, not a completed action. So the lecture says that employees don't need to read all materials. According to the professor, employees just want read some points like summary and conclusion. No, I think you want to say here should focus main and maybe most important supporting points. Probably just say it like that. Okay. So in this case, in the last part, you have finally the reading says that employees should not try to separate the steps in the writing process. Yes, but again, why does the writer say this? So what is the major support point here? So if you look at the actual reading passage. So it says they should not separate the steps in the writing process. This is what you want to say here. Because it is too time consuming, they should write the document all at once. So you want to make sure, I have no problem with condensing the information, but don't leave out an important support point. Because it's not just what the argument is, but why does the writer make this argument? So again here, you should probably explain that a little bit more. In this case, you can say something like, on the other hand, the lecture opposes this point by explaining that they, how about let's use workers instead, that might work better, that workers steps in the writing process, since, now again, you need a support point here. So if you go to the lecture, so it's saying, it says, is to separate the steps in the writing process, because if they don't, it's saying that this leads to very slow writing. When employees try to write the document all at once, it's very slow. So what can we say about the other idea? You can say since you can probably say something like this. And then, I don't know if you have to say this, but if you want to mention that information, you have to be pretty accurate about it. So you might want to say, therefore, the speaker suggests that a worker first should compose an outline, then write a rough draft, and then go back and revise the document as needed. Right? You can say something like that. And that explains what the steps in the writing process are. Alright, so what do we have? So let's compare what you've written here. I've already made a few corrections and things, and let's compare this one with the sample. And I'll put this along my message also so you can see it. So the beginning. For businesses to be successful, the reading passage recommends that employees participate in all meetings, read all the materials, and bypass the steps of the writing process when writing reports. But the lecture questions the efficiency of these suggestions. First, the professor claims that the number of employee meetings should be limited and short. According to him, meetings longer than 60 minutes might be unproductive since workers usually stop paying attention, especially if leaders spend too much time covering introductory topics. He recommends that, instead of calling a meeting, workers should try to deal with issues using emails or making phone calls. In addition, they should either decline going to the meeting or inform participants that will have to leave the meeting after 60 minutes. However, the author in the reading passage argues that companies need to schedule as many meetings as possible since they're an excellent way of dealing with problems and staying current with modern work-related technology. Second, workers do not have to read reports entirely according to the speaker in the lecture because it might be a misuse of time. According to him, only small portions of each report are probably important. He thinks that focusing on main ideas is a more efficient way of reading a report. In contrast, the reading states that reading materials given to employees will help them perform better at work, and that it is recommended that they read them completely instead of primarily looking for main ideas as the professor suggests in the lecture. Lastly, to help employees become more efficient writers, the professor suggests that they follow the steps of the writing process. When it comes to writing reports, the professor explains that workers should not initially try to write imperfect and complete sentences since it will take too long to complete the reports. Instead, for the sake of saving time, he proposes to make an outline, write a quick draft, and finally revise and correct the mistakes. However, the reading states that reports should be written all at once since separating the steps in the writing process wastes time. Ultimately, the lecture casts doubt on the reading passage by stating that having frequent and long meetings, reading all reports in detail, and writing reports all at once will in fact make businesses less efficient and consequently less successful. Right? So that's the example essay. So let's look at your conclusion. In conclusion, the points made in the lecture contrast with, I'm going to say here, with those in the reading. So those refers back to what you've said here, points. The lecture demonstrates that employees should save their time to get better. No, that does not work very well. You might want to say the employees can be more efficient and successful by not attending all meetings, not reading all the training materials and steps in the writing process when writing reports. So that is a little bit more accurate. The way that you wrote it wasn't exactly explaining what was happening. So what is the difference? Here's my question for you, because the only way you can improve your own writing is to internalize yourself what is different from what you're doing as opposed to the model essay, right? So did you notice that in the model essay there are some supporting details from the reading and the lecture? So you have a tendency to only focus on the main points but not the most important supporting points. That's a weakness, I think, in your summary right now, according to what I'm saying now. In addition to that, you also have some language use issues, right? So now what we want to do is let's figure out what your score is right now. So I don't think you'll get a perfect score. I don't think you'll score in the 4 range. I think you'll probably score in the 3 range here. So let's take a look at what it says. So let's say this one says, even though your response is somewhat connected to the writing task, it communicates only unclear, global, and even imprecise connection of the points made in the lecture to the points expressed in the reading passage. Yes, I'm going to answer yes to that. You did have problems in that area. Your response has omitted at least one major key point in the lecture. No. You included, I think, all the main points in the lecture, so I did not score you in this area because of that. Your response conveys an incomplete, inaccurate, or imprecise connection of the ideas in the lecture to the ideas in the reading passage. Yes, I can answer yes to that. So sometimes what you said was not entirely accurate. So you sometimes had some trouble. Now, I have a feeling it's not... I think that you understand what you've listened to and what you've read, but to be honest, some of your language use limitations are preventing you, I think, from making these accurate connections. So for you, I think it would be a great idea for you, based on the writing that I see now, I'd recommend that you spend time in the vocabulary and the grammar sections of my course. That's going to help you where you will be able to function better when you do summaries and you do research writing, I think, at the graduate level. If you can strengthen your vocabulary and your grammar skills, it'll make your writing much stronger when you get into your graduate program. Right? Now, I already know you took a pretest and you're working in the grammar part of my course, and keep doing that. That's good. Now, for the vocabulary, I'd recommend Vocabulary Lesson 3. That's a great lesson to give you some good basic vocabulary, but not enough. You should also master the vocabulary in Vocabulary Lesson number 4, 5, and 6. It'll probably take you about 2 or 3 months to do that, but it'll be well worth your time to learn those words, because what I'm helping you do here is not just get through this level and pass, but I'm giving you the tools and the language that you need for a lifetime. So if you need English for your job, if you can learn the lessons, the vocabulary in lessons 4, 5, and 6, and this is going to be very beneficial for your job if you need English. Alright, so I'm going to put you right now at about 3. I'm going to put you at 3.0 out of 5, 20 points out of 30 on this practice test. Now, for the purposes of our class, if you go to the syllabus, page 9, you look at the rubrics here, 3.0 puts you at 76% on this assignment. Alright, so now you know. You now know the strengths and weaknesses of your writing. And what you have to be careful about when you're summarizing, you want to make sure you're not misrepresenting the information that you're reading or you're listening to, and make sure you don't leave out important supporting points. Those are some things that you can learn from this practice test.